Wow. So through that whole introduction, my mic was on mute. So I'm going to try this again. Okay. Sorry about that. Thank you so much for letting me know that. That would have been one lengthy video without any audio. All right. Let me try this again. My name is Jason, the creator of I Am Legion for Dying Light 1 and 2. And today I'm going to be continuing my development. And I want to try to summarize what I've been working on. So on Friday, I kind of did a heads down day where I was trying to stay focused, where I was trying to look in and investigate the human AI system. It took a lot of trial and error development. And so basically, I didn't want to get online and show you guys basically this frustrating iteration of it's just not working. So let me go back into what I was just explaining again. Thank you guys so much for letting me know that that mic was on mute. So essentially the summary here is that the human AI, the vanilla human AI, has a very simple purpose. Basically, they are spawned into the world and then they receive a weapon, a singular weapon. Some of them receive throwing knives, and that's fine. But basically, they have this split. So they have throwing knives, which are like a different type of item. So there's a stone and a throwing knife, and then they have a Molotov. Well, the Molotov goes through this very interesting line of code to even be enabled and used. They didn't make it like the daggers, where basically if you had a dagger, they could just throw it. I guess they didn't want any type of inventory management or anything there. They just basically, they throw it and that's done. With the Molotovs, they have to go through this entire chain of code to be able to equip the Molotov and then throw it. And so what I was looking at is, as the mod has gotten more complex and difficult with the different zombies, I wanted to try to recreate the human AI to where they were doing more in the world other than just dying. So I was like, can we take the human AI that's in the game and make them parkour? Can we make them climb? Can we make them, if they're overwhelmed by zombies, can they go up? Can they fight downward? Because that's kind of the whole thing with the biters, right? Is that if they're not runners, if they're regular biters, then they're stuck down below. And so technically, if you program your human AI, they could sit there and light up everything down below them and then go down. And so it's this shift of like, they've disabled all of the rooftop code, all the spawners throughout the rooftop code. I've tried turning it back on and it's not working. And so because I can't really spawn these guys up on the roof, I started looking at how can I get the guys that are being spawned down on the ground to be more intelligent. So the focus was trying to take the code that they have singular purpose right now. It's trying to restructure that code to where it's not driven by this 1 and 0, are they this role or are they this role, but rather, do they have this equipment or do they have this equipment? So I can get more creative with the equipment that I'm giving them, because basically you can spawn on probability. So if you can spawn on probability, then that means you have variation. If you have only a set class, then they are or they aren't. So it's, it's 1 or 0 kind of thing. So the goal here was trying to look at, can we take the human AI and expand them to where they will react and they will escape or they will fight and have the tools needed to actually overcome a huge, large enemy. And so basically they're just getting wiped out at this point. So it took a while, but the end result is that we now have, and I guess I'll just go ahead and pull it up so you can kind of see the concept of what is done so far. I was testing yesterday, and I'm trying to discover if I can create more weapons for them. Can we give them things like UV flares? Can we give them things like grenades? That kind of thing. They don't really have the logic to support it right now. So what I ended up doing was basically writing a set of code that said that loading. I programmed it to where you can be the concept of the grenader, which they do the stupid thing where they drink the Molotov and they spit and they're really dramatic about it. You can still be that, but for everyone else out there, they can also have things like Molotovs. They can also have different weapons that they use to try to overtake the enemy. And if I can start to give them a bow, if I can start to give them a one-handed weapon, and I can also start to give them a Molotov, now you have a foot soldier that is able to determine, based on the number of enemies, based on the distances, based on the threat, do I need to go up? Do I need to fire downward? Do I need to use this weapon? Do I need to use that weapon? That kind of thing. And so that was really what I was trying to establish on Friday. And I think I made some pretty good headway on that. Essentially, right now, hang on one second. It looks like my audio might be tied up here. Let me go here and make sure this is set. It's always the little technical things. So let's see. Coder. Yep. There we go. Okay. So you can see down here, basically, they get this Molotov. So now they actually have Molotovs. You can see that they end up with Molotovs in their hands. This is kind of debug code at this point to start to say, will they start defending themselves with Molotovs? So I've also noticed that the distance thing is a problem here, where they're not being properly activated until you're like actually down on the ground. And as I said, so this is pretty much debug code at this point, because what they're going to do is they're just going to throw Molotovs over and over again, kind of thing. And I'm doing that right now to test, can I give them additional weapons to basically fight with. And you can see here that you end up with a very good switch here, where they do switch between their weapons, they do respond accordingly, and then on a cooldown they basically say, okay, I'm going to pull out another Molotov and throw it. And so they're definitely still simple. They're definitely not complex enough right now to be able to determine. But one of the things that I've also been working with is this vertical challenge. So as they start to have more of their buddies die and that kind of thing, do they actually start to go up? And one of the cool, as a side comment, one of the cool things that I saw the other day, again, the cooldown is way too high here, so ignore the fact that the whole environment's about to catch on fire. But what you can see here is that as they get to certain distances, they're pulling out their Molotovs and then they're going back in with their blades. So this took a long time to get working properly. But the idea is that these guys can now determine, based on proximity, do I need to flee? Do I need to go upwards? So here's an example of, well, not a very good example, but yesterday or on Friday, I had a really good fight where basically they took to the buildings. So the bandits took one side of the building, the PK took the other, and they were basically throwing Molotovs at each other across the different walkways. And maybe we'll start to see that here in a second. But essentially, they ended up having a full out Molotov battle in these buildings, and it was just it was really interesting to watch, because before, what you have is, so if you see here, we started with a normal number of zombies in this area, which is usually like 8, 9 zombies based on the spawn rates that I have right now, and these guys are still alive, and the only reason that they're still alive, crap, is because they're using area effect weapons. So he just got one of the PKs that was climbing up to kill him. They're pretty clumsy still, so that edge detection is not great. But these guys are actually, fighting it out up here and trying to get away from each other. And I gotta work on the climb code, as you can see here. But basically, they're still alive, so they took out the zombies in the area, and they're starting to have a complex battle with different weapons up high. And you can see where the code still has its bugs, where basically one of the things I've seen here is that if his cooldown is still saying like you need to wait to pull out your Molotov, then they do this thing where they want to pull out the Molotov, not their sword, and so because of that, they'll continue to try to pull out the Molotov instead of pulling out their weapon, and so they'll just kind of continue that same action. But they're not doing the stupid grenader thing where they're chugging the stuff and spitting and all that nonsense. They're just instead using the Molotovs quickly and then continuing to fight. And really, this was the focus here, is trying to say, okay, for like the PK, for example, Molotovs are pretty cheap things to make. I mean, it's glass, alcohol, that kind of thing in the game. It's really, actually, I think I added alcohol to it. I don't even think they have alcohol in the base game. And so the idea that you could make a Molotov is a pretty simple idea here. So the idea is that if you have things like these watchtowers, can we start to get at night? Can we get them throwing Molotovs down into crowds of zombies and not getting down into the crowds themselves, but rather actually holding out and defending that tower from large numbers of zombies? And that's kind of what the original prompt was. I was looking at different ways to start writing different interactions with these guys to see if we could make that more intuitive. And you can see here that this is actually working pretty good. So I'm pretty happy with where we're at right now as far as him being able to say like, okay, I'm going to ward you off with a weapon and then I'm going to try to throw a Molotov at you. There's still a lot of logic that needs to be done here. So obviously they're not as aggressive as they normally are. Their primary weapon right now is currently being coded as the Molotov. And so because of that, I'm basically going to start trying to look at how can we turn their secondary weapon into a Molotov that they use briefly, and then they get back to fighting with their regular weapons and make that more dangerous. Or now we might have actually just encountered some of the glitched PK, and you can see here they are. Oh, okay, and it is actually interesting. It's like a fisherman. So this is the actual group that I've been looking for. That it doesn't make a lot of sense. Basically, these guys are getting spawned into a prefab that is spawning the wrong people, essentially. So it's spawning PK, even though I think it's meaning to spawn bandits. It's supposed to be like bandits and a survivor that they have hostage, but they end up as PK. So that's just kind of the status update of where things are and how things are going. It's tedious. So the other code that I've been working on is pretty straightforward, very easy to do. This is a little bit more complex, where it's basically saying like, okay, did I piss off all of the PK for some reason? This actually might be from some of my conflict matrix work, because this is definitely more PK than I've seen before being angry at me. But so I'm continuing to dial this in. Usually some of the stuff I've been working on has been pretty straightforward, pretty easy to do. The behavioral stuff with the zombies is definitely something that's taking more work. And then now with the human AI, they're just very simple AI patterns. They do very simple tasking, and so because of that, it's just not. It's very difficult to expand. So that's what I'm going to be working on today, is seeing if I can continue to take these guys, and if they're not able to just use their weapons, their melee weapons, to go in there and wipe out everybody, can they start to use Molotovs to clear the area? And also, can I start to identify if they are zombies, are they bandits, that kind of thing in the code, so that way they're obviously not lighting up a bunch of humans over and over again, as much as, I mean, maybe, but, more focusing their fire on the zombies is kind of the hope here, is that we can start to say, okay, they have a horde of zombies heading towards them. They decide to use better weapons than just, going for their sword and running into a group of 8 zombies. So that's what I'm going to continue to work on here today. Let me go ahead and share out this link on the Discord. If you're not part of the Discord channel, make sure to jump over. We have a great community of people that are constantly giving feedback and asking questions, and part of the development process, and that's been a lot of fun. If you have those questions that you want to ask and kind of see how things are progressing on a weekly basis, it's a great place to go and spend time and find other people also playing this game, which is usually once the game content itself starts to become not the reason you're playing co-op, usually for me at least, starts to be the reason that I want to play the game more. So make sure to join the Discord and come join the community if you haven't already. So I'm going to go ahead and start crawling through the code again, and I'll try to talk about what I'm working on, how I'm working on it, and we'll see if we can make some good progress today. I've been thinking about a couple of things today prior to starting work, and there's a couple of additional things I want to quickly add so that I can keep testing. It's getting to the point of where now I have multiple things that I'm trying to, because of the amount of code that I'm going through, I'm basically trying to test multiple things at once. So it's getting a little bit more complex, but it looks like some of these changes that I've made with the conflict matrix, for example, looks like they were starting to attack me a little bit more on the PK side. than usual. I'm not sure why that is. Potentially, it could be so inside the conflict matrix. So the conflict matrix is the only information that I can find so far of basically like how they're choosing their sides, or why they're behaving the way they are towards the different AI groups in the game. And basically, you have this concept of they didn't write enough code to where it's like you have the concept of bandits, and then you have the concept of the military guys and the renegades and all the different groups that they put in the game. I guess they didn't get to that point yet. They did create this concept of Bandit 2, which, when reviewing the code, looks like it is the military guys, but it's obviously not been super transparent, and that's not worked really well yet. And so, still trying to test that out to determine who is Bandit 2, and if we can make them work in our own, you know, how we would actually like them to. Alrighty, let's move this over. And let's start to crawl back through. So I'm going to actually leave some of the conflict matrix stuff alone. The stuff I was mentioning prior that I've been thinking about, and something I'd like to go in here and make that change to, is that I've been also working on the biters while I was at it. So I wrote the other day a better version of their movement. So they're moving a little bit better now, a little bit more reactive. Larger groups of them are moving across the map faster than they were with the shamblers. So I'm happy with that. As far as the difficulty goes, that would be the new casual kind of thing, so that they're more dangerous. For the movement, for the random movement, I've been trying to get the random movement working how I wanted it to for a little while now. And the challenge has been basically they don't have movement modules. They essentially have spawn, use the idle, look around, and then when the player gets within a certain distance, go after the player. If they detect another target, then go after that other target. And that's about as complex as they get. So, because of that, I've been trying to look at how we can change that logic to where they're not just shambling around in the same idle animation, but they're actually moving around the map, hunting if they're outside, even creating the concept of like they're going indoors. So they're, they're moving through the spaces, and then they're actually going inside the houses during the day, kind of thing. These are all things that I would like to try to see if I can get these spiders to actually do naturally. And for that, I've got my movement code that I've been working on that should drive them through the environments. The challenge with that is that I started to get these guys moving, and they weren't able to snap out of it and attack the player. And I was thinking about it the other day, and I think I know why that is. So currently, I have to go back and see how I guess I took it out. Random. Yeah, I pulled it back out because it wasn't working how I wanted. So basically, I need to go in here and write. Well, first, I need to make sure I didn't put it anywhere else. Just pull this up really quick. Oh, there we go. So I've had a couple of backups that I've been doing. Let's see. So in here, I did the escape from sunlight. So that's where I was trying to get them to actually go and move indoors. We have the idea of the movement that I've given them. So essentially, I think how I was doing this is that I have to go back and remember how this flows. So basically, first they are starting, and then they use, if we call the idle random walk, then that sets a random location, gives them a random movement type, and then tells them to move in a certain way. It then hands over to biter move, which this movement then tells them whether or not they should group gather, whether they should find each other and start um, trying to use that to change their direction, that kind of thing. And then there's a move simple, which is more called quickly. I don't think I've been able. I think I've been using the move simple, but only for very basic testing. But essentially, the idea here is that they're supposed to have these like blend outs. So they're supposed to have this interrupt code that tells them like, okay, you've moved enough. Now you've detected a target. Go after the target. And so all of that is in there, but they haven't been doing it. And just the other day, I was messing around with the human AI and the volatile AI, and I think I found it. So I think I found the value that is missing from this to get all of this working. So first we need to go, let's bring up Sublime. Let me make sure that I don't have some of this hiding in my code somewhere. So if we go back to the mod and we say open. So I'm going to be searching through my mode real quick. Here it is. So I've put this line in their combat. So their combat is currently trying to use it. That's actually where I was. So let's go ahead and bring that back up. And the reason I want to double check this is that I don't want, actually I was using the generic combat. That's why I wouldn't have seen it. Basically, when I did this one the other day, it did it. It's just the challenge is that it basically every time they fight, so if they start fighting, then when they stop fighting, then they start moving. I actually want the opposite of that. I actually want them to start moving, look around the area, and then if they see something, go after that. So we need to move this back out of combat. We need to go back to general, and essentially we're going to go to the biter on start. And I was thinking about this the other day. They're getting their update, and I think right after the update, that's when I get them moving. As long as the rest of these, I mean, I have to think about it as far as the rest of these would need the interrupt as well. So potentially what we do is go down here, add it to the beginning. So the first thing they do is rest or they stand up. So they start their process, then they start their idle walk. The thing that's missing, I think, is that in the combat branch, if it's there, I'm going to be sad. It's not there. Okay, so I think this is it. And this has been bugging me for a while, so I really hope this is it. On the human AI side, they have this concept of a condition that's called, this says interrupt. I think I'm missing an R there. And here it is. So I found this condition the other day that says it can interrupt module movement. The problem is that I don't have access to any of the modules, so because of that, it's not like I can go in here and see, how to call it or what to do with it really, because I don't have access to it. So because I don't have access to it, it's kind of hard to know how to write for it. But you occasionally stumble upon these little conditions and stuff like that they have nested in there that gives you this little, oh, maybe this could work. So they have this concept of interrupt the activity module movement, which has been the problem, is that they're out moving, but then they never stop moving. So I think the problem is that I just didn't have this value in here. So also, I'm going to add this to a couple other areas as well to just start to see if this breaks up the pattern a little bit. We don't want to call it once and then I go through the process of adding the code and then I go over, launch the game, and it doesn't work. Instead, what I've been trying to do is add it to more locations for more of the behavior to be activated so that I can confirm this works. Then we go back and we say, okay, where do we actually need these things to occur? Technically, if more of the movement was interrupted, I'm fine with that. It comes down to if it's getting interrupted, is it sending it back to the behavior tree so that you get them more sporadic? Maybe that's a good thing. So I need to go in here and basically say under movement, they have the prolonged UV, they have escape from sunlight. Under the escape from sunlight, up here at the top, we're also going to add that it interrupts what they were currently doing. Say, oh, by the way, I'm in sunlight. And then I think for the biters under combat, they have only one combat node, and that's it. So I think that one under combat should do it. And then if we go in here and confirm, we have a couple of different ones here, including the movement module back in the main category. So let's go ahead and turn back over to the game just to test that briefly. And then I guess while I'm at it, before I launch back in, I was also looking at the humans and this Molotov thing. Basically, that's had to be completely restructured. I mean, pretty much I've had to go in here. I like started on this the other day. I got super frustrated. I had to walk away. I deleted all my code. I wasted like hours trying to get this working, and I couldn't get them to behave right. They were glitching out, acting all kind of weird. So I deleted everything. I started working on some other parts of the mod, and then I came back and I was just like, no, I have to get this. This is so stupid. Like, this is so simple. They should be able to access their inventory and say, if I have this weapon, use it. They should be able to do that. And so the challenge here is now that we have that, they're now doing the Molotov combat, which is great. The challenge is that we now need to make sure that we have more of a delay on that. So essentially, I'm now going under all one-handed users, and if they have a concept of a Molotov, they are now throwing that. What I've also set up is this minimum cooldown for this system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this up for now, and basically what I need to determine later on is how to call this. So basically when to call throw Molotov. So for example, once I write in, so I have a plan for parts of the code that looks at distances, that's constantly calculating the distances, and then saying if they're close, pull out this weapon. If they're this far away, pull out this weapon. If there's this many of them, go up, that kind of thing. So I'm still trying to figure out how to pull that off in the code. And so for this, right now I've got this one, just throw a Molotov. Simple. I want to find out more what they do before they throw the Molotov to make sure that this isn't breaking other parts of their code. And this has really been the challenge, is that they've written the code to where it sends them down a very narrow funnel of logic to say this is all you can do. So if you are this is all you got. What I've been trying to do is basically give them a better handoff to say you're more than that. You got this. You can do more things. And so I need to go and pull this back up and determine if any of this is really working. So we're testing out multiple things at this point, including the volatiles. So basically, if I can fix, I've now got them crawling around to where they're no longer just running around the map, they're actually crawling around the map. The challenge is that they sometimes act really dumb. When they're crawling around the map, they'll be like crawling around the map, they'll stand up, they'll launch themselves at a wall, they'll run along the wall, and then they'll start just randomly crawling again in the wrong direction. And so it's kind of, watching them is not scary as much as it's like, what the hell are they doing? So I'm still actively working on that. So the next update that comes out should be a pretty big update for a lot of different systems, and that's how I'm trying to set these things up. I'm going to pause for a second while this loads. Okay. So what we should see now is we should see biters walking in different directions from the start. They should start moving around the map randomly, not necessarily driven towards sound, but that's another part of it. So if they hear sound, I have to add that interrupt in there as well, to where now they've heard sound, so they stop moving in a random direction. They now hear something, so they head that way. And hopefully that interrupt. I'm not sure if those systems are tied to combat or not, or if that's another general system. But these guys, like the biter code, is probably the simplest code in here, which is shocking. They pretty much, again, they don't really move. They just stand there until the player walks by, and then they go after the player. So you can see here we have them attacking, so at least we didn't break anything to the point where they can't attack. One of those guys did pull out a Molotov pretty quickly, but he put it away because of the cooldown. So he's pulling out the Molotov, but he's not able to use it, which actually is a disadvantage, which is why I need to make that system better, because that's what got him killed, is that he didn't know how to use the Molotov. So then if we get within distance of these guys, yeah, basically they're now just trying to pull out the Molotov. It's basically firing through the code. What's happening here is that I'm allowing them to fire through the code to arm the Molotov, but I then have a cooldown on throwing the Molotov. So they're basically able to, pull out the weapon, but they're not able to actually use it, which is not the way to do that. I need to refocus it to where they're only able to pull out the Molotov after a certain cooldown. And so I need to kind of refocus some of that code. These guys look like they're easily moving around the map. No challenges there, but I guess what the problem is here is I think this is sound driven. This could be random movement. They're all randomly moving down this hallway. I've seen this before where they basically, it's like a pathing system where they don't have another path to really go in because they only have like a narrow alley. So they're just kind of walking. I like it. Okay, so let's keep following these guys and see, you know, yeah, I think that's what's happening here is that basically they only have this alley worth of navigation information. That or they see whatever is over there. This could be where they're all just moving towards. Ooh, blew up over there. When I change this code, you can kind of see over there, there's a female that she's barely moving, and then the rest of them are using faster approach. So we do have this idea of slower moving zombies. Well, I don't like the fact that they're moving away from these guys. And renegades just spawned in here. So obviously the ones that are in the middle of movement are stuck in movement. So I was hoping this would work, but it looks like they are still stuck in movement. Let me go up and confirm. Hello. Yeah. Well, that's a shame. I was really hopeful that that was actually working because a couple of them were actually attacking the bandits earlier. So I'm not sure what is different about these guys versus the other ones. But it is working. So the challenge now is I need to figure out how to write everything to where it's allowing them to snap out of it. Because as you can see here, they're just kind of moving and not stopping their movement. But this is interesting with like these over here because no, they're moving too. What I'm also trying to look at is once they start moving, if they can detect one another so that they start to like come together and work work together. So to start to make the hive or the hordes, not the hives, but the horde complex, where you end up with groups of zombies moving together across the map. And so I'll be continuing to look at that, but it looks like that interrupt movement module. I mean, maybe it's just not targeted enough yet. Maybe if I continue to expand on that, it will start to work. But I do think that I got the code for switching their weapons. It took a little bit of work, but I do think now that I've had to learn how to do their Molotovs as well, I do think I have them switching weapons properly, so that that glitch where you saw them with the one-handed weapon kind of far away, that was based on where they were trying to use the same weapon at the same time. So they would have a bow enabled or equipped while they were also using a one-handed. I've changed the code to where they can only use one at a time. So, and I do like the fact that it does look like they're aggressive. It does look like they're moving. They are randomly throwing the Molotovs. So the challenge is going in there and cleaning up the code that says, you know, they're able to pull out the Molotov at all. Make it to where, well, so rather they're pulling out the Molotov, but they're not able to use it. What I want to change is say, okay, they're not able to pull out the Molotov at all until this cooldown starts. So let me start there. And then also, let's see. Basically, I think all of this code was trying to get grenades working, so I think I don't want to push any of that out yet. So let's just keep trying to dial this forward a little bit. So here we have the concept of combat Molotov. Let me go and review how I've got this code structured. We'll put this this higher level parent folder to the slightly to the right there or left, so I can get to that as needed. So we have combat Molotov, which if we go to combat Molotov, that's my script that says throw a grenade. They have this really weird system in here, and this I wrote it intuitively last time, and it doesn't work. And so the system that they have in there, it basically goes in reverse order. It like basically says throw a grenade if it's active, and then it says go activate the grenade. So here it's sending this tree to go throw the grenade, and this is actually, I wonder if maybe that's part of the problem, is that this is my work on the grenade, not the Molotov. So let me line this out really quick. We'll come back to the grenades. So we'll line that out, and we'll go back to throw Molotov, and let's improve the throw Molotov code. Essentially what I want to do is once I figure out how to get this working correctly, how I want it, I'm then going to go in and write basically based on what they have in their inventory, throw their Molotov, throw their grenade, throw whatever they have. So that way it's driven not by the logic, which is how they originally had it, is what role are they? Instead of that, it's saying, look in your inventory. If you have it, throw it. And we're going to continue to try to make that the new approach to where they're using their inventory system rather than a role system. Because then essentially what I'd have to do is I'd have to go write all the roles to be more expansive. I think by doing this, it'll allow them to switch between roles based on what they have in their inventory. And so that's the approach I'm doing right now. Okay, so first we see combat Molotov. Combat Molotov goes over here and sets up their positioning as a grenader. So not to confuse this with actually being a grenader, it's saying go and perform the actions of a grenader. So if we pull that up, I also have this concept that I was writing of position Molotov, which I originally was writing this, but the challenge is, as long as this is combat, it's combat Molotov. So technically at this point, I think I could switch over to, and maybe I'll go ahead and do that. I need to review the differences here, but basically I'm trying to keep the grenader concept there so that they still have that grenader pathway, which is the dumb one, spits and all that nonsense. But then there's also this idea of someone who can just throw a grenade. So the grenader I'm trying to leave alone. And then if we say position Molotov, and what I'll do is I'll send this to the other view. So that way I can pull both up here. Basically, this person is not forced to go to high ground. That's a big difference of where I've been trying to send the Molotov or the bowmen and the grenaders up so that they get that height. So they're not using go to high ground. They are using hold position because one of the problems is that they're kind of walking off the walls kind of thing. They are using their slots. They are keeping in restricted areas if they're spawned in a restricted area, and then they have their combat idle. They also then pull out their throwable. So what I think I'm going to do is I think this is good enough to start saying combat position Molotov instead of combat position Grenader, but I think there was a reason I didn't do this before. Let me confirm that this does work. So they go to combat position Molotov. Inside here, they have combat position Molotov. At this point, they do pull out weapon throwable. So maybe it was the grenade code that was causing the glitch earlier because this all seems normal so far. So this pull out throwable is part of their hand exchange system. I tried to set up the code to where basically they could hold one-handed weapon in their right hand, Molotov in their left hand, but for whatever reason they wouldn't actually throw it. I even found the code where it said throw left hand for right hand, that kind of thing, and I could never get them to actually just throw it. So I'm not sure. I'm having to currently take the steps of saying, stop what you're doing, pull out a Molotov, throw it, pull out your weapon, continue. Which I hate that I have to do that. But once we have this system kind of ironed out, I have more better backups. Then I might try to look at that again. So they're pulling out the throwable, which I also started working on the code for pull out Molotov. Um, Copied. So more than likely for this one, I did. Oh, this is actually where I was trying to have them pull out both. Yeah, so we won't use that one yet. I'll leave that one alone. Basically, in this pull out throwable, they're putting away the other weapons and then they're pulling out the Molotovs. And so they also have this holster cooldown. So there is like this idea of switching between. This was originally designed for the Molotov, so that it determined if they were doing the spit or if they were doing the throwing. And then there's also for like the knife system, there's also, well, actually, that's not true. They don't have the holster for the knives, which I was mentioning earlier, but I can't remember if the mic was on during that time. Um, so for this, they're setting their left hand to none. They're setting their right hand to their throwable, and I think these additional steps that are happening, I've noticed a couple of times they kind of reach in and then none comes out, and then they reach in and they get their weapon. I think that's due to these, where it's doing a double action here, is doing this in a sequence. Um, and so it's taking an extra step, which ends up getting them killed. So I think what I'm gonna try here is that instead of breaking these apart, let's try moving these all under the same logic here, where we say has active weapon, and I think basically what we would need this to be is a bow. So if they have the active weapon bow, which I'm not giving Bowman Molotovs yet, but maybe we'll just leave that in. Technically, the left hand shouldn't ever have anything in it. Also, let me confirm that I have a backup of this. I'm pretty sure I do at this point. So we say human, I guess I need to save, throwable. Yeah, okay, so it's saved. So whatever I do here, I can always revert. So let's go in here. Let's get rid of that first memory sequence. So they should clean up their ability to switch. Basically, it's going through and saying if they have a bow, put the bow away, set that to none. If they have an active left, or they have an active weapon, that is none on the right hand. Go and change the weapon to where they're pulling out this right-handed weapon. Now, again, I think this actually might be the reason that it's doubling up, so we're going to line this out. Okay, so we've lined out that set none first. So hopefully that will help clean up the little, like, where they move their hand, move in, a couple of times there, and nothing happens. And then they're setting this right hand to throw. So I think this should accomplish everything that I need it to. Let me launch back. Well, first, let's switch back over to the zombies real quick.
So the zombies are currently moving around the map. They have no purpose. They're not handing off to the attack system. So let's go and take a look here to figure out why that might be. So we're going to try to test multiple things here at once so we can move a little bit faster through here. So we moved their idle walk to here. And basically, I think what's happening is that it's no longer getting down to the attack sequence. Let me try to see with the way that this sequence is set up. So it's getting the update. Potentially what's happening here is that it's getting in the same loop as the update. So we need to go down here to the sequence, group behavior. Let's actually say down here below in the track, they're tracking. Let's actually go down here and say like if everything else has been completed, start walking. And I've tried this before, but I didn't try it with the interrupt. So let's just make this one slight change and see if that buys us any real estate here. So let's go in here and say, I've gotten into the habit now, instead of replacing, I just clear the whole thing out again. So that way we start with a clean slate, but then this glitch happens. Thank you, Windows 11. Super helpful. All right, I think that's it. Try that again. Okay. Play. Okay. And if anything, I'll probably go in here and turn down some of these settings. I think it's mainly DirectX 12 that causes that lag time there when it's loading. But probably end up turning that back down. I did notice that the fade in glitch is happening. I can confirm that a couple of people have released that the pop in issue is still happening. I agree. And so I'm going to try to root that out as well, to go in there and basically have to go folder by folder and figure out what is overloading the engine at this point. I don't think it's the density. I think I guess it's some other function that's being played that's causing it to glitch. Okay, so we've got movement, maybe. They're attacking. So I think that's noise activated movement, not random. He died quick. Poor Bowman. Before I was, oh, well, we've got movement. They look like they're stuttering a little bit, but let's see here. Go find some of the ones that are moving. Moving. Oh, so that's the group behavior. So they were grouping, I think. We'd have to confirm that. But you can see here, it's the update bug again. So they are trying to attack. I think that's a Bowman that's hitting me, wherever that Bowman is. So I was seeing, yeah, there he is. I was seeing some like stuttering there, which is not exactly what I want. They're attacking. Okay. So this might be noise based though versus, so I mean, at least it's working. So let's go over here and say, so here's a guy. He looks like he's definitely moving just cause. Oh, there's a glitch there. Maybe the handoff though. So maybe that was the handoff between the noise system and the movement system. Bowman or Bowmaning. So they're working. Let's go find some one-handed attackers and see if we can see if they're properly working. So he pulled out a Molotov. He's looking for that angle, I guess. He put the Molotov away. He's got his blade. He's not rushing in yet. So this is keep distance idle right now. So he got murdered because he didn't move fast enough. Okay. Here's one of my kiddo zombies. Still working on them. I think this is the alleyway that's full of guys. So, yep. So they all switch weapons. They all have Molotovs. And again, this is kind of for debugging, but they can't throw. Oh, nope. Stand corrected. So they can throw. They're back to their normal weapons. They're attacking. They're doing the ward off thing. So I'm not sure why when they switch back. I think it might be like an issue with the slot system that's sending them back to like this, like they're warding rather than going in there. So potentially a couple of different systems fighting each other here. But they are going also and still trying to get in that hit. They're still alive in there. Let's see if anybody. And see, that's another thing is the targeting system is still very much focused on the player. I've been trying to improve that to where they're not just hyper focused on the player, because look at them. I mean, they're getting wiped out. So they need some type of system in there that basically says, like, where is the danger coming from? And I'm trying to also balance out the damage for the zombies so that the zombies take less damage to take down across the levels. So essentially the idea is zombie... Oh, shit. Okay. That scared the shit out of me. What is he doing? How overpowered this is. But essentially, sorry, back to the discussion here is basically I want the zombies to basically take the same amount of damage, give or take. But the problem with that is that the weapons just become super overpowered. But the focus is trying to look at. So this is the viral run at code. I've seen this glitch before, and the volatiles are using a lot of the volatiles code. And so I think this is where he's had his module activated with the viral logic to where he's trying to run at the player. But he's not attacking, so he's definitely glitched. Let's go take a look again and just confirm. So we've got our guys are climbing up. They're having, oops. It looks like they're having some type of battle up high. Oh yeah, there we go. All right, so that's working. They are firing from up above, which is sick. I do love that. Definitely some friendly fire here. And all of that code is exposed, so I'm dialing that in as well with the throwables to determine what needs to happen with that. So they are switching, they are warding off, they are working together to take down the zombies. Let's see if they detect these guys. Volatile's still out somewhere, I can hear him. Were they scared of me hitting that zombie? Okay, so they're working together still, kinda. Why are they scared of my weapon attacks? I noticed a couple of times they seem to be like, yeah, shocked by my weapon attacks. It's interesting. So this may be handing over to the noise system a little bit more than expected. So I'll have to keep looking at that. But these guys prevailed. They're now in the area. Just kind of see what happens here. They've cleared this area. They're going up. Oh shit, are they clearing out inside? Oh man. I've never actually seen them go up and start to clear out indoors. I wonder if that would have happened if I wonder if he would have focused on that guy instead. Let me get out of their range. Well, I really like the idea of them being able to climb up and start taking out different floors of guys. I do think that they're gonna probably cause some things like this, right? So now the volatile is out, and he's gonna run back in, I guess. This is kind of the first time I'm ever seeing anything like this. This is pretty cool. Yeah, their edge code is not very good. And I'm still trying to find their edge detection code. Basically, there needs to be more of a buffer for their climbing and their jumping that says, if there's not enough edge here, stop walking to the edge. And I think I actually, now that I think I actually know where that is for the humans. So I might actually be able to fix that as well. But okay, so the PK got wiped out. They tried to clear this area. It looks like they left this hostage alone, so he just got killed. I'm not really sure. He looked like a survivor. It's definitely a survivor. Not sure why they had a survivor hostage. Still got to figure out the spawn pools a little bit to figure out why these encounters are doing some things they're doing. They're like, don't make me do it. I do think that for the most part, some of these guys only have the maximum ability for 2 slots. I did notice that when I added the Molotovs to a lot of these guys, which that's the problem is I just need to go in there, and this is like I mentioned before, this is kind of debugging level of where they all just got Molotovs to start testing with. But essentially, we don't want everyone to have Molotovs. We only want certain ones to have Molotovs, and maybe even certain levels. And that was something else that I'm going to look at as well, is this idea that all the guys that are spawned into this area right now are level 6. I'm going to start trying to look at the code to see if I can make it to where they start to spawn more diversely. Because the end result of that is that if I start to provide them inventory items and that kind of thing based on their level, then you're more likely to start to get certain guys will have things like Molotovs. Certain guys will have things like bows and arrows or better weaponry, and so that's going to take some time to balance. But this is another example of where I don't necessarily like. He's not finding the opportunity. He's doing this threatening thing, which I'm still trying to turn off. But essentially, he's looking for an opportunity, and he's not going to have it until he pulls out that one-handed weapon again. So if he gets stuck in a loop where he doesn't know to pull out his one-handed weapon, then he's just going to get wiped out. And obviously, when working on some of these more generic things, like sending them higher, that doesn't always just work, because if they're supposed to be guarding hostages or whatever mission they're on inside the environment, they'll stop doing whatever that event is, and they'll go do whatever secondary thing I've told them to go do. So he's blocking appropriately. The one thing he's not doing, and the thing I'm going to try to work on here in a second, is getting the update based on distance. I think that will go a long way here. Because the next step is making them retreat, or trying to make them retreat based on number. Because obviously this is a very large number of zombies, and one guy by himself is probably not going to be able to hold out regardless. Okay, so movement is working, I think. Let me confirm with the zombies really quickly that that's kind of working as expected. If there's... I'm in a dark zone? Sure about that? So we've got these activating by noise here. So it looks like we got some PK on the side there. I think there is a good amount of movement on the map as far as like these guys patrolling. I think a lot of it is going to be noise driven. And I think until I get up higher, but then it's always a consideration of, are they actually coming after me, or are they just going after somebody else, or do they behave differently based on distance, all these different things. So let's go high real quick. And, oh, hey guys. And then also I have to set that movement to a conditional. Let's see what's attacking them up here. So the bowmen currently have like a very simple go up logic set up with them. I think I'm going to change that, hopefully with this update code, to where they're doing it based on their update logic, not on a simple like combat parameter for them to just go up. Oof, he's dead. They got one. And then also I noticed that for some reason the kick physics for climbing people seems really high. So it's added that to the bug list. I'm going to try to look into that as well. But I think that's where I was trying to work on the physics reactions based on just a normal kick. So they took him out. We have some survivors over here. Let's go check out what they're doing and what weapons they got assigned. So these guys, these are the story keepers, the storytellers, or whatever. They all have bows, so survivors are getting a good balance of bows, as in my opinion they should be, because most of their weapons are garbage anyway. If we look down here, this is what I was referring to earlier. It's hard to tell if these guys are not moving because of a distance thing, or he's moving, but is he moving because he's detected these PK? Probably. Yeah, so this is all LOD based. So you saw there where he kind of despawned when he got over to the PK. They've got some very interesting logic in here that basically tells him to go do actions at a certain distance that they'll basically reset after something. Yeah, about to say there's definitely a very large group near me. It's a charger. see if he knows how to react in here. Yeah. I think any of them know how to react in here. Interesting. Worth every penny right there. That's actually an excellent reason to have a charger inside of a building. I think overall, I'm pretty happy with the amount of zombies moving inside the environment for the lower levels. We now have a good amount of movement. We have a good amount of warfare happening. Um, these different groups are trying to hold the line, trying to wipe these guys out. We've got bowmen that are going to be a threat to the player. Um, if I can figure out a way for them to stop targeting the player first, that would be great. I think it's based on threat level. They do the same thing when the enemy NPCs see the like PKs see the different humans. They immediately go after the player or the other NPCs long before they go after the zombies. And so this is all based on the threat system that they have in the game, where they've determined that the player is higher threat than. Honestly, this is kind of the preferred action I would like to see, where they're basically picking me off at a distance. Before, I was having everybody kind of run in and do like as much damage as possible. But to be honest, this is leaving more room for the ranged to do their jobs, while the other guys kind of hang out. Gotta stop with the. Gotta figure out the movement here for the. You can see here that they're gonna die just because they don't know how to navigate. If he's not already dead, yeah, he is. So if I can continue to refine this to where the different bandit types and stuff like that out here, they use distance a little bit more intelligent, then that would make more sense with the zombies of saying, like, you know, they are keeping their distance, but only because they're allowing these other roles to do what they need to do to wipe out the player or the zombies. Because the end result right now is basically just you keep getting these guys just get wiped out. So definitely still with the Molotov glitch. Okay, so let's switch over really quick. The biters I'm pretty happy with. Let me keep testing that. They're not moving immediately in every random direction. Hey, Twisted DJ, how's it going? It's going good on this side. Doing some human and biter AI development stuff. That is painfully slow, but I have a lot of changes from the last update that I look forward to sharing. But hopefully I can get in everything that I want. It's still kind of down to how glitchy do these guys end up being. So still trying to crawl through. How's your week been? Let's pull open combat really quick. They're using combat update. Combat update. I'm pretty sure I haven't actually modified their combat update yet. Let's go take a look at their update. Yeah. And also their tactics. That was another thing that. Yeah. We're going to get rid of the two guys that are quest based, and we're going to take a look at just their overall logic. So essentially, they have this concept of rushing, this concept of staying back. So I think I probably, if anything, want to change this logic to where it's more based on count, if possible. again, these guys were never meant to be fighting this number of people. So because of that, a lot of this code needs to kind of be changed or improved. Combat target is in radius, be aggressive. Um, there's also a lot of they have a lot of code in here that basically dumbs down the AI to where it says like if someone else is investigating, if someone else is attacking, then leave them alone, kind of thing. And I've been able to turn a lot of that off, but it's kind of tedious to have to crawl through and keep trying to say like, okay, where all have they basically said if one person's doing it, then don't worry about it because it doesn't make a lot of sense when you're getting attacked from all sides, kind of thing. This is the one that, so this one down here is basically saying it's cautious. This is where it's looking at to see if anybody else has died in the area. Um, hey, Froggy, thanks for joining and for your question here. So, Froggy's question is that the bowman will climb on very small objects. Um, yes, so I've already made the change. Thanks for mentioning. So, the change is already in there to where they're no longer climbing on the lower objects. And I'm actually going to change the way that they're climbing here very shortly to where that's hopefully will they won't be falling off objects as much, and then also they should go up now. And so before with the previous update, they just kind of climbed on the nearest object and then they stayed up there. This one I've actually changed it to where they're kind of continuing to scale. If someone's chasing them, they'll continue to go upwards, but then also they'll fire down. So that worked really well for the Molotovs. So now I need to program in where it's like basically if they're high up in the air, then it gives them more opportunity to do things like use their bow or use their Molotovs. So instead of using it near the ground, maybe they'll go up and then start to throw things down. Sorry to hear about the hangover. Sounds like a fun weekend though. So basically the prompt for this next update, I mean, I've been trying to build towards the idea of releasing 1.0, but a lot of the updates that I did previously were kind of focused on more difficult AI in general, so you just die a lot. What I'm trying to do before I release 1.0 is actually make the world a little bit more rewarding and a little bit more randomized and a little bit more intelligent. I think that'll bring people back to the game a little bit more than the game just being difficult, because people like the game being difficult, but I feel like eventually people will just get bored with getting killed over and over again. So I've switched over to trying to make the AI more intense or more, uh, more interesting at least, so that people are more interested in what are the human AI doing inside the environment, to see if that will allow them to start to sneak around and kind of watch the enemy and start to have many narratives. So a lot of changes here. Sorry to hear that you've been going through some stuff, Twisted. That sucks. Hang in there. If you ever want to just come chill in here, I'm always working on something and be happy to just talk. Um, Another question from Froggy. Let's see. Sometimes. Yeah, so that's actually one of the things that I was just looking at. Actually, while you're on here, I'll go ahead and bring that up and see if I can look at see if I can find where they're doing the pathing. So essentially, this is a pathing issue where it's about the edge detection. If they feel safe on a pathway, then they don't understand that they need to climb down or that they need to do an action to traverse that information. So all of that's going to be their pathfinding logic. Um, Underneath, let's see if we pull this open really quick. There is actually a pathfinding script that I was looking at not long ago, but let me make sure I'm pulling up the right one. So if we're going to say pathfinding, navigation. So they've got their standard one that I've been doing, but there was another one. pull up. So I'm actually, that was an interesting question. So Twisted DJ just asked about bringing content from the first game over to the second game, such as their guns. Um, from a lot of the discussions with a lot of the guys and girls over on the Discord, I personally think the guns would break this game pretty quickly. I feel like you would immediately start to like to get bored because you could just mow down all the enemies. But that being said, if you could figure out the balancing, I have been looking at trying to, because they have so much of the first game's engine in the second game, I've been trying to look at injecting the first game content into the second game, but by doing so, making it to where you have to own the first game, because that was another thing, is it starts to get on like legal issues. Like for example, I can't just release their stuff if nobody owns the first game. So I'm trying to do what they did with essentially like Skywind and a couple other updates for different games, where if you had a mod that introduced stuff from an older game, essentially all you have to do is point it in the direction of the older game, and then it gets the information and pulls it into the second game. So it's all very tedious. That's a lot of work. More than likely, I'll be switching all of that work after 1.0 release, so that way I can focus on trying to get so many different things of this mod kind of figured out and working correctly, and then I'll start to add in the different systems after that. But it's also a time thing. It just all of these things take a lot of time to kind of get going, and so to be honest, if it came between getting their guns working in the game or getting my own guns working in the game, I would probably try to get my own guns working in the game rather than theirs. Their guns were okay, but like they're very outdated. So let me make sure this code is within the window here. But essentially, they have this idea for the navigation presets. They have this concept of basically, I don't think these guys were meant to climb. The guys that are up in the outposts are definitely not meant to like go crawl around the buildings. They're meant to just stand up in the areas. So now that they're moving, I think the problem is that the human AI is now navigating the building tops, and they weren't really meant to do that. I have noticed that a lot of the zombie AI also struggle on certain different types of surfaces. So I think probably the best thing I can do here is start to look at this concept of the width of their navigation. So here they have this idea of minimum path width, and for the goon, they have this much higher. I've turned this down so that they might be able to move around a little bit easier inside the buildings. I just noticed that the spitters are also at the same width as the goons. I don't know why that is, to be honest, but we're going to make that a little bit smaller. The suiciders, same thing. Yikes. I guess I just didn't go back and double check these lower ones just because I've been focused on the biters and the virals and the goons, but that's interesting that even for the bolters, they have to have this width. So I could be wrong here. It might not come down to the doorways. This might help with the edge detection to keep them from falling off the edge, because things like bolters, they definitely move across the building tops, and they definitely scale around. And so maybe same with volatiles. Okay, well, I'm starting to, and the banshees, and that's not my code. Let me confirm that's not my code, because I don't think I would make that radical of a change, because I was assuming, based on what I've been seeing, that that was like wide because it was like goons and that kind of thing. But according to that, oh, wait, oh no, how did that happen? When did I set this? Move to other view. Okay, interesting. Compare here to see what all I messed up. Let's see. So I must have brought in some of these changes to the different ones to make sure. I probably copied over the path length, and then I also brought over the width, and probably unknowingly added it to these other conditions. That really sucks. Now I didn't add it to these guys down here below, so that's interesting. So a lot of these people have the concept of this width that they're setting. I guess my question is like, why is this not a default? If it's being manually set on so many different characters, what's the difference? Yeah, so I wonder if they're using, let me go up and say, so like the bandit one hands, they're using this width, but that's actually that's if these actually are real bandits anymore. I don't think these are. Open world PK one hand. So technically, we should find this in the presets folder. If we go down here, technically this should show up in the presets folder. If it doesn't show up in the presets folder, you always have to try to figure out what got torn out and what's still in there. But it does look like they have this concept of where these guys can climb. If these still work, then that would. But I'm nervous because like the conscripts definitely aren't in the game anymore. Scavengers, survivors, E3 bandits, renegades, and developer ones down here at the bottom. But they're all kind of using. What are they calling this at the very end? Main documentation, huh? Use documentation. So these first ones are not even a main. They're navigation presets documentation. They must have ran into issues with the nav mesh. Items can define up to 16 dynamic surface tags. So here's the surface tags they have. And then, oh, that's the, okay. That's the documentation block. Got it. That makes sense. And then, but why is it being called, I guess? Like, why would that need to be called? Down here at the bottom under main, they're calling documentation. They're also calling the E3 stuff and the developer stuff. So I'm not sure I understand. Sorry, guys. This is kind of a, again, it's always, you go a little bit further and you're just like, what the hell is this and why? All right, I got a couple of questions there. I'm going to try to read through really quick. Building. Yeah, absolutely. So like with the biters can't actually climb. They're well, no, they can. So they have the code in here where basically they can climb up small buildings, but they can't climb up like tall buildings unless you switch them over to my Ultimate Survivor version. And then yeah, them searching and moving around the scene is what I'm working on right now. So hopefully we should have the concept of like some shifting around and movement here soon. So with this minimum path width, I don't think this is it. So I think this is the minimum path for them to climb, but I'm starting to feel like this is not. They have this, yeah, use human base defaults, which down here is defined as. Here, I thought above the open world. Yeah, open world defaults. Human base defaults, which is defined up here, not the open world defaults, which are down below, which is interesting. So they have open world defaults and then they have base defaults. It's my guess that they're no longer using the open world ones, but here's the open world and it is pointing the navigation to this preset. I guess the question is does that work anymore? So with that, we do have this minimum path width, path max random deviation, random added cost factor, deviation. I think up in this is the random path deviation added to the short pass through. Random deviation will be added to every poly's edge passing, maybe same path. Interesting. So potentially this is where they're adding the ability for them to climb up different locations, so that way they're no longer climbing up the exact same location. They're actually spread out over a period. My window's a little large here. Oh, that's great. Thanks, Froggy. I appreciate the support, man, and keep enjoying that Ultimate Survivor version. Personally, it's where I'm gonna play through is with Ultimate Survivor, just because like the zombies. I mean, they're interesting as far as like them closing in and stuff like that. But as far as the world being like really intense, really difficult, I think once you switch over to that Ultimate Survivor, it just the ability for them to scale buildings and run across rooftops and stuff like that is definitely more what I'm interested in. Let me switch over. So it's not going to be the navigation. I'm trying to remember. I wrote it down somewhere, but I might be able to do some searches here to try to find it. It's definitely in the, we need to open up our bare bones folder instead of doing the larger one here. So let's say bare bones, and let's try path. Let's just do path real quick. Maybe edge. Let's see. Used for finding a path. Is this the editor? These are editor tools. Less useful. Here's navigation. It's not navigation, so it's going to be a bunch of stuff down there. I can't do path because path is used. That's a common one used for the UI as well. We do edge. Also used by the UI. Excellent. So we get all of that nonsense. Here we have the actual building meshes where they're actually establishing where the ledges are. No, you're good, Frog. Thanks for being in here and just keeping my eye on the side here. Mind pointing. Yeah, so actually I was working on that. I was looking at that code the other day and it doesn't work. So they have the concept of activating the, well, that's not entirely true because you can break it very easily. I believe that is going to be located. You go into presets, logic. Let me look around here real quick. So if we then go into special infected, screamer, and then under modules, screamer. See, that's the problem, is that most of that logic is tied to a module, which the modules make it to where you can't get into the modules. And so I'm trying to remember, I know I can break it, but as far as, for example, making it to where the volatiles do it, it's kind of like an all or nothing thing. So if you wanted, for example, the virals to be, or the volatiles to be able to do it as well, I think you would probably want to take something like their module screamer and add that over to the volatiles. But the problem is then you would end up with them doing certain other parts of the screamer code, which the screamers are essentially the baseline game. They're idiots. I mean, they're standing cameras. That's essentially all they do. Um, and so let me continue to try to look around at that. Potentially it's under this concept of like a screamer profile. Let me open this up really quick and just take a look and see if I could find that exact. These are their audio events. So potentially you could tie in through an audio event if it's calling it. I'm getting a little spread thin here. Let me continue to look at that for you and see if I can find that concept. I've added the concept of mini chases to the volatiles, but I haven't looked into all the stuff with the screamer yet. So let me try to get back to you on that and see if I can find some answers. But let me switch back really quick to. Because I was in the middle of. Yeah, the challenge with that may be because that would require a split between the types. Currently, they've got a lot of the code to where that's what I'm fighting with right now, to where there's really only one type and you can't create new types. I would have a much easier job here if I could just make new types. Um, but most of it is where I'm trying to expand the logic of these guys because they limited that system. I can't add more types. So I'm having to increase or modify the behavior of the one type to be more inclusive. So let me look around a little bit more at the screamers and see what I can find out. But I have a couple ideas for the screamers as well. So let me get back to you on that, Froggy. So I'm trying to remember, man, the pathfinding, the ledge detection, all that stuff. That was all found under script, under going here to AI. Spin this up really quick. It definitely, yeah, because it was obstacle avoidance. That's okay. Obstacle. Let's see if I can spell obstacle. Obstacle. Make sure I'm spelling that right. Ah, got it. Obstacle. It was part of the obstacle avoidance logic. Open. It was not in the nav mesh, the editor nav mesh. This was something else. chase. There's the audio. They had the detection of obstacles. I'm trying to remember what the word was. Enable low object grip. Jump on the obstacle. Progression actions. Then let's see. Interesting. Looking for, but an interesting script. Avoidance. Minimum distance. There it is. Locomotion defaults. All right. Obstacle watchdog. That's what they called it. Climb. Approach. This was the pathfinding logic. But this is mainly for the animations. So that's an animation blender. So that's going to be different. So for the spawners coming out of the windows and air vents, that should be activated in the mod so far for I Am Legion. But the specifics of like how to start a chase, so that's not necessarily associated with just being a chase as much as where they're spawning. So that one you can activate. And all of that has been turned on in the mod. Let's see, where's my bare bones? Here's where they're actually doing the edge detection on the actual assets, which is interesting. Got distracted there. That was an interesting script as well. So let's see. It's going to be down probably, if not in AI, then it would have been in scripts, but it doesn't look like there is the concept of so maybe climb instead. If I make the needed areas wider, they'll be less likely to positional slots, climb. It's specific to a type. Yeah, vantage points, idle points. Here's the nav path, which this actually might be. Minimum distance to edges. There we go. See if it's listed anywhere else. Only two places. AI positional slots. Let's go back, send this one back to the default. And then here we need to do positional slots. It's already open. And say distance to edges. Interesting. That's for dynamic positional slot params. And then also, I was thinking about this earlier, trying to update the biters and everything to where they won't go die in the water. It's also high on my list here. So while I'm looking at the solution here, I also thought about this one the other day of like with fire. Um, I didn't really think that like zombies by themselves, like the zombies, should be stopping because of fire. Now the infected maybe, but this bandit. The NPCs, we were just kind of talking about this a second ago. Basically, they don't have this concept. I would have to look as well for the water type. Basically, we don't want them traveling into the water, but as they're stating here, if they spawn in the water, they're basically not going to know how to get out of the water, which is interesting. So, regular ground, interior. Oh, actually, if they have this concept of interior navigation paths, I've said this before, where you basically tell it to allow them to, um, you tell them to not allow them to go through the interiors. I've turned all that off, but that's AI is going into interiors um, versus these guys coming out of interiors. So this is interesting. So if there is this idea of a surface called interior, then I may be able to start to look for the surface type detection to determine if I can make it to where they're no longer seeing it as interiors, which I think that would probably be the best bet right now, to basically tell them disallow specific areas of water. Well, there it says disallowed, but they still do it. Dynamic surfaces. Interesting. Okay, for the idle points, keep relative height. Exploration distance. Minimum distance to edges. So I think what I need to do is add, let's see what the other one said. I think it was like 0.3. Yeah, what if we increase this? We'll just increase this to like 2 and just see what happens here. Do this one at like 1.3 and just see if we start to see any differences with these guys getting close to the edge. The bowmen should be using vantage points while everybody else should be using the idle points, I think. And so because of that, I also wonder if I can enable some of their debug stuff, if I could actually see that in the game. I think I'm also going to increase this to like 3 and start to see. I'm not sure why they actually have that max height distance, unless that feeds over to how the melee attacks are happening. Okay, so we found some edge detection. We'll see if that works. For the surface fire, I'm also going to add one here that says surface water. Let's see what happens here and see if they also will avoid water now, because the water thing is annoying. So with that in mind, we were in the middle of looking at the tactics. We switched over to the edge detection. Before I changed the tactics, which allows them to change how they're moving around the environment, let's switch back over and say, and look at the edge detection that they're doing now and see if we can dial that in really quick. It's not quite where I want it to be for the zombies. They're currently doing their little idle thing, and I think that's feeding out of combat. You can see that this one looks like he's actually moving. They are too. Got like a little line of moving zombies. I don't think they're doing it based on audio. I think they're actually just moving. So let's go try to upset them. It interrupted them. They turned to me. Will they attack? Okay. So at least we have a collection of zombies that are moving around the map that we can interrupt. So it's pretty great. These guys are doing their thing. They're taking down these guys. Molotov. Another pulled a Molotov. They put it away because of distance. Interesting. Oh, see, I like that. Yeah, exactly. I don't like how he fell. The end result of that was him falling, but um, up before that, that was pretty great. So these guys are actually fighting pretty good. They had PK show up, so they're chasing them down. I'm too close, so he's putting the Molotov away. Uh-oh. Too close, he puts it away. Oh, he must have hit the... There must... Yeah. About to find out what happens here. So zombies are hearing. They're coming into the area. PK are already here. Will these guys come falling out of the building? Yeah. PK got wiped. They all got wiped. Interesting. Well, I would say that yes, it's still a little glitchy, but that was actually pretty good. Hey, hello, welcome to the live stream. I'm doing good today. How about you? And Froggy, this is update 14, which is not released yet. So that's what I'm actively working on right now. So this is building off of 13, but 14 doesn't currently exist. guys are moving in. They're still slicing bread. Maybe you guys should stop slicing bread. Pulled out the Molotovs. They've all got their Molotovs out, which is not good. They've switched. No. So this is so the switch between the zombies is now kind of is a setting based on the difficulty. This is casual, so this is casual edition. I do this for testing, so I don't play on ultimate for my standard testing because I would die so often that it's hard to do my testing. So this is going to be the casual edition. But the ultimate edition would be all of this, just with the added caveat. See that I've been working, and he fell. If you ignore the falling part of it, that's what I've been working on for days. Is the guys up in the towers pulling Molotovs and raining down Molotovs down onto these guys going underneath. So that actually looked pretty legit. I think at night it would be even better once we make sure that night is working correctly. But the PK are winning. They're slowly taking over this area. They're setting the zombies on fire, which is great. They're still up in the towers, so the ones that need to be in the towers are still up there. I saw a couple go up into the towers. So they are using the tower, which is great. Bandit with a Molotov. So that glitch is still happening where the distance, he's getting stuck, and there he goes. So it's still kind of like it's a timing thing where he had a momentary issue. The edge detection is not as good as I was hoping yet. Also, I've got their health bars showing up because I want to make sure that this is getting balanced out correctly. Basically, the PK should be able to take out, well, all of us should be able to take out these zombies a little bit easier now. So that way they're a little bit easier to clear. But the idea is that there's a large number of them, so the larger the number, the harder it is for them to actually be cleared, so the enemies should still die. Or the enemy human AI or the human AI in general should die from the amount of zombies, but they'll have a harder time, or they'll have an easier time killing the individual zombies. It's just the numbers. It's a numbers game. So these guys are now going up into the buildings. So it might be a connection issue that's causing them to fall, where basically they're using surfaces to get up high, but then they don't have the connection to go low again. And one of the things about the Molotovs here, Frog, is that basically they're two different systems. So, I mean, if you disable the ability for them to climb, the Molotov should work really well in general. It just happens that the climbing system is also, until the edge detection gets fixed, the climbing system is causing them to fall. But it does look like they are using Molotovs better now. It's now a matter of, can they use the Molotovs and also get vertical without falling. So, like, let's see what these guys do trying to come down. So he jumps down, has no problem. Is he going to jump down? Oh, see, but it's stuff like that where he's gone high, which I need to balance out to where he just can't go that high. But my guess is that he's going to have to fall off of this because he's up high enough to where he doesn't have the ability to connect lower. but maybe he'll jump down. That guy jumped down and then jumped back up. And then this is a patrol, so a patrol has come through. Looks like that guy died. Then another question is whether or not he's gotten high due to retreat, or is his health low enough to where he's using that, or is it because of combat? Detected a new source. I'm more interested in what is this guy going to do. So far, his ledge detection seems okay. I mean, he hasn't gone falling off just yet. So potentially, if I increase the ledge detection even higher, that might keep him from. Let's see here. Oh, he jumped down. So he's able to jump down. So they are able to navigate these spaces pretty well. What do we have? Bandits coming in. Is that a bandit? He seems to be interested in something. Follow this guy and see where he's going. He's going a good ways. Use a Molotov. Use a Molotov. Better hurry. Going up. But then he doesn't stay up. It's where like with the like edge detection. So he's up. Oh man, if I could make him use that current, that would be outstanding. Love that glitch. So he goes up, and then he doesn't know what to do. So we still have the, and then is he dead? Yeah, he's dead. So the ledge detection didn't really stop them from falling off. They're still going up, so that worked pretty well. I think the challenge is now, so his buddies are showing up, which I really like. So they are able to move around the environment pretty well now. He died quick. So another thing I'm trying to look at is also this idea that they could use health kits and that kind of thing as well, because their health is essentially continuously just going down, and then obviously they just die, and that's that. But if these guys could use the if they could use health kits, I think that would be better. So these guys, this is actually the random move code. So you can see here along with the like actually join together code. So that's interesting. So I've gone up too high. They don't know what to do. And so they're kind of spreading out. I really like that, honestly. Get down, they detect me. I go up, they get upset, and then that movement code kicks in. And so the end result ends up being that they're kind of gathered around all below me. In this case, would actually make this a useful system. Got some new followers. I had this problem before where I don't know if this is a key binding thing or what the issue is, but basically, old. Okay. Well, I've done glitched up. To have fuel, maybe if I just use up the shots here or something. There we go. Okay, so they're still having issues with their climbing. The interior zombies seem like they're doing good. We do occasionally still get the volatile that comes running out kind of thing. So I still need to look into that. I'm looking at trying to change or redo some of the volatile code anyway. So if that changes, yeah. But they didn't see that ally, so that kind of ruins that. Kick off of a fiery. Renegades won that one. And see, this is another one to where, again, it's something to do with how they determine that the zombies are a threat. They see me, and sure, so I'm a threat, so they all come after me, but they're still not seeing the zombies as an active threat. And so because of that, they are hyper focused on me instead of and so I need to also change how they're starting. So currently, again, they're starting with the Molotov instead of using the Molotov as a secondary measure. So now that I've got them properly working with those, now we need to go in and say, how do we get them using the Molotovs only as a secondary? Because here we go again. We're going to get more whole scorched earth thing here. Which, to be honest, if I were these guys and I was out in this world, I would probably also want to start the battle with a Molotov. If I had this many zombies and this many guys in the area, I would probably also use a Molotov. So it's not that far fetched. It's just we want to try to decrease some of that spamming. So let's back to the drawing board here. Let's see. So the bandit is about to kind of change in here. So the bandit is no longer going to run away. Basically, because of the whole chase thing. The chase thing only made sense if you watched it. It only made sense if you didn't have increased spawns. Once you have a ton of spawns in the area, then they're running away through the middle of zombies, which doesn't really. Basically, it's another opportunity for the NPCs to glitch, where they're not detecting anything around them. They're just kind of running away. That's fine with empty streets, but unless I send them high onto the buildings and they actually chase them across the building tops, it doesn't really do a lot for us. And so the current idea is that they mug someone and then they continue mugging everyone. So they're violent, so they'll try to kill you. So if they have a bow and arrow, then they can shoot you up on the rooftops, and if they have armed weapons, they'll try to come chase you down, kind of thing. So they're armed muggers, not going to just run away through a city filled with zombies. So if you scale the game up and you have hundreds of zombies around them, it doesn't make a lot of sense that they run straight into the arms of the zombies. So with that, let me go ahead and do some backups here so that way we make sure to get some of these things backed up, we'll say fighters. So, well, let's do the humans first. Human logic, Molotov, that working. And then for the biters, we'll say biters random movement. I'll probably want to go in there and change how this is working so that that is more immediate. But for now, yeah, I'm at least hoping that that would make them a little bit more of a threat rather than, just, they're running through the streets of zombies. And again, it comes down to that. I'm trying to write the code right now to send them up and that be meaningful. As you can see, they're going up, but now they're falling off. So that idea of them running through the city and actually navigating the surfaces is kind of the challenge here. And so I'm going to actually switch over here in a minute and start looking at how the volatiles and how the virals are doing it and see if we can start leaning on their systems a little bit. So let's back up some of this and say, actually it looks like I went in here and turned these down. So with they're all using the base anyway. So base combat, which ones did I turn down again? So they're not using this width anyway because they're doing the use. So it's the extracted one, yeah. So here, go in here and we say like why are the biters using the same one as the other ones? So yeah, so in order for them to climb down, so they are doing it now. I've actually seen quite a few little battles where they're fighting up and down now. The challenge is that most of the time they fall down. So they'll come crashing down to the surface and then they'll start chasing the player again. So I need to figure out how to make that a little bit better. So base infected surfaces, dynamic surface, zombie, viral infected randomness is this path deviation. For the length, save time here. Let's just go in here and increase the length in the default. It's a typo and a half. For the path width, we probably just need to go down here and remove these if it's using the base defaults, which it is. So this is calling it twice, which could actually have some problems there. So like with the bolter, thinking about it before, probably the bolter has the best. I don't think I've seen the default bolter climb buildings in a way that I'm like, that doesn't look right. He can jump incredibly high though. So I may want to start with like the bolter and start looking at taking the default bolter and trying to apply it to, and then once again, so are they the NPCs? Are they the NPCs down here? I'm not sure which these are, but their connections, if we actually look upward, downward, and then the horizontal connection length, It's interesting that they don't have. So where is their surface types? So they have this generate dynamic surface. Gotcha. Okay, thanks for letting me know. If they're generating these dynamic surfaces and that's what's allowing them to move, then potentially we need to generate. So if we look at the virals, they're doing this, not that one, but the infected surfaces, they're getting the surface type zombie, and the zombies don't seem to have any problems. So if I set them over to Ultimate Survivor, they don't have any problem moving. Matter of fact, it would actually be nice if they did fall, if they fell more often. I feel like the humans is now the opposite now, where the humans are falling and the zombies are climbing. So, for shits and giggles here, let's go and do a backup. So, work to improve edge detection. Let's actually go in here and change their surface type to zombie. And let's see if they gave the zombies better paths. What are the volatiles using? See if they actually, I mean, they still move weird sometimes, but they're also using the infected surfaces. So I wonder if the problem is that they just gave them better pathing than the humans, because the humans aren't meant to move. Let's see. So then on the bandits, they're still on low climb, but their low climb is like they've got this low. So depending on, that's a prototype. It's hard to know which ones of these are actually legit. The reason that that probably is happening is because it's giving them 10, which they need to climb using a little bit better stages so that they're actually going from surface to surface. This is what's causing them to jump, and then their jump is set to 10 as well, which is actually kind of surprised by that. So let's go in here and say jump to 1, jump to 1, and in one hand, so they can jump on things like cars and stuff like that that are low. Sure, we'll let them do that, but let's see if this will help keep them off of jumping onto the sides of buildings. And they've got the concept of a bandit runner, which maybe that's the bandit. Yeah, so the volatiles, I think, have their best path, because if you watch them, they'll see you across buildings and then they'll go sprinting and they'll run, same as the virals. So they have the same code as the virals, essentially. But if all of these guys are using the surface type bandit surfaces, then that should mean that I can give them the same surface type as the zombies. They're already getting the same disallowable surfaces, so that's fine. And then these guys are probably the only ones that, so they have like this NPC combat that, who is this? Who is NPC? So they're all also getting the surfaces, but they're not getting they don't have a surface. So potentially this is not an actual, I would hope that these guys aren't actual guys in the world. Let me give them the same as these other guys. So if we go back up here to the open world, bandits, and we say bandit surfaces, we'll say use, we'll give it to these guys as well. Exactly. Well, I'm gonna find out. So if their edge detection is better for the zombies, because It's actually kind of funny. Maybe someone asked the other day if I could add back what I did with Dying Light 1, where they were tripping, so they were falling. Um, I mean, the fall is not good, though. I mean, it's not like they're like tripping and falling. They're literally walking off the edge and then falling, you know? So it's not really something that I'm wanting to give to any of these guys, to be honest. But kind of the idea here is that if we could give the NPCs the same abilities as or the same like level of realism as the biters as far as the climbing goes, or at least somewhat close to it, because they're climbing up and then they're literally running off the edge. I've never seen that with the zombies. They've always climbed up and then they chase you, and they'll chase you across building tops. I've never seen them like run to the edge of a building and then just fall over. So let's see if we can utilize some of that really quick and see if that gets us any better results. Hey, Michael, welcome to the broadcast. Yes, I did. So I think that one's fixed. The issue was giving them two weapons. So I gave them a bow, and I think the problem was is that they were pulling the bow out, but then they also had the other weapon out, and so the other weapon was getting added to their right hand, and the bow was getting added to their left hand. And so the problem was is that they were attacking using the bow, but then the other hand was kind of floating out there, or the other weapon was mounted to their hands, but it wasn't really being used. So I think that one's fixed. I've been trying to keep an eye out for it, but basically I've written some new Molotov code, so they're using grenades now, or they're using Molotovs, and a lot of that work helped me find the problems that I was seeing with the other ones. So we'll find out. See, that looks like some indecisiveness down there. So it looks like we're still having that distance bug. So that, or it's the cooldown bug. I'm not sure. But he's definitely getting glitched up down there where he can't draw his other weapon. I think he tried to get away there at the end. Let me make sure I didn't introduce a bug here. He just got killed. He also had the Molotov out and died. You get street level. I keep kind of watching and I keep wondering if they have like this simplistic LOD, like long distance system in there that's their behaviors are different for that system versus the other. So let's see what this guy does. That's actually what I'm doing now, Frog. Is that I'm trying to look at, okay, if I can give them Molotovs, can I give them UV sticks? Can I give them, other? Can I give them other throwables? So that guy also was getting attacked. That's what I'm working on right now, Michael, to try to determine if I can. Whoa, 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 whoa! Did they come running out? That was pretty good. So I wonder if turning up that detection is helping them with the interiors. This is great. There's no way this is night. What time is it? No, they still got an hour before it's night. So the interior zombies are out screaming on the edge of the buildings. I step onto the ledge of the buildings, and obviously they're trying to attack. It's actually really solid. Now if he'll go back in. So I'm on the same ledge. These guys are mainly activated. So this is the volatile issue. So the volatile bug's still in there, which I need to fix the volatile bug. If I fix the volatile bug, it might fix this issue. Right now, the volatiles are doing this thing where they're, or the virals are doing this thing where they move towards me. I think it has to do with the random movement code that I'm trying to add to the different bandits. But it could also be, so let me step into the interior and see if it fixes it. Better hurry. Yeah, so it's actually, that's what it is. So they're spawning as interior virals, and then all of the virals and all of the special infected are receiving some code that says they can't engage anyone outside of the interior. The biters don't have this problem, and so this is actually something I've been looking at, is saying like, but I do like that. I do like that they're out here screaming, kind of thing. Will he run back inside? Where is he? Ryan. Hang on 1 second, guys. I'm gonna get to your comments here in a second. I'm just trying not to die here. So yeah, so he's still got this viral bug. He's about to get killed. Be the first time I think I've seen bandits successfully take down a volatile. There we go. Props, dude. Okay, so what we're testing here is their ability to scale the buildings and not fall. So I need to go find a group. I think there's one over here. Okay, so we've got a large group over here. Probably got enough Molotovs. Just for everybody that's joined, that's watching, this is for debugging only. It will get balanced out. Obviously, we don't want everybody to have Molotovs. PK have come in. They have their own sets of Molotovs. Hey, guys. And usually when I've been in this area, it kind of plays out to where you end up with guys up in the buildings, because now the renegades have also heard. Oh, that's fun. More PK coming in. Oh, shit. All right. While they're fighting it out, let me take a second to read your guys' comments. So, just to get caught up here. So the floating weapon glitch, that's taken care of. I'm still looking at the throwables, so that's why the debug code is on here, so that they're throwing often, so that way when I add on the different things for them to throw, I can continue to test how well they're able to do that. Are you talking about the update that I'm working on right now, Michael, or are you talking about the update that Techland is getting ready to release? And then
Yeah.
So Molotov version where the whole city is just burning because that's actually what would happen here. So they did good. They PK won, took these guys out. You got a couple of Molotovs being thrown. I guess the one thing that sucks here is that I didn't get to see them actually climb because of the amount of enemies they were fighting here. So, and I'm guessing it's about to turn night. It is. So it's about to turn nighttime. We can test the volatiles while we're at it. See, it turns night, and I think this is my favorite part of playing now. Is that when it actually turns night, you immediately start to get all of these guys diving out of buildings. Okay, you're focused on the wrong thing right now. All the humans should still be out here because I didn't spawn in when it's night, so there should be a large number of humans out already at night. So if we run around, that will probably despawn a lot of them as I shift around. As soon as we start to see screamers, that will go away. But I'm pretty sure it's not this tower, wasn't it? Maybe it was in a different area, but there was a good tower area. I think I see one over there. Let's head towards a tower. See if we can see how they do at night. Oof, that was bad. They're still working well. It's a little corruption area here. And ultimately, I need to die from a volatile and make sure that they're actually working correctly at night. Obviously, they were having that issue with the interior glitch. That's not the problem here, obviously, because they're not spawning inside. Yeah, and that's actually so, Michael. The reason that I haven't released 1.0 yet is actually because of the Techland update. So after the, all right, yeah, they have no problem no problem at all. So that's the reason I haven't released yet. Is it's supposed to come out here in the next week, 2 weeks, and so because of that, I'm waiting for this update to drop before releasing the official version. Just because there's no reason to release if it's just going to break right away. So that should be coming here shortly. But lots of time to get in your guys' feedback and little tweaks before releasing what I'm hoping will be. Oh, so that edge detection that I was doing, maybe that has fixed an issue with the interiors because they're now getting the connections. I'm guessing for these guys over here, the interior zombies are now coming out. They're no longer just kind of sitting in there, which I really like. What is that? he got caught on a ledge. So these guys will also run away when they hear explosions, so they should fall back a little bit. They're not going very far, but they're basically getting a ways away from the explosion site kind of thing. This guy's just kind of chilling. Still have a good amount that are just hanging out. They still can't move each other, and so the interior split is still happening. The difference is that I need to find out why this is happening with my interior special infected, and I think they're just getting better to where they're actually detecting and that kind of thing more. So I think this has always been a problem. Um, it's just now they're not able to attack because I'm not in an interior, which I think it's based on the surface detection. So I'm actually going to look a little bit into the surface detection to see if there is an interior surface so that I can start seeing if that's what's setting their ability to move or detect things inside of a surface. Let's see if we can get these guys. We got more coming in. Let's see if we can get these guys climbing. Go away from them for a little bit, see if they'll attack something else. They seem to do really good on these building clusters right here where they're actually climbing up. If I can just get them to stop paying attention to me long enough to fight these zombies. Let's see if I go up. For whatever reason, the most glitching seems to happen as soon as I go up. So let's see if this helps. It kind of depends. So I'm kind of reviewing your guys' questions. Uh, it kind of depends on what all they add. If they add, fixes to things that I didn't modify, then it won't take that long. If they added a bunch of code to systems that I've been developing for a little while, then yeah, it's probably going to take a minute. But we'll just have to see what we get. So far, either some of this edge detection code has caused them to no longer go up as much. Here's our random walker. Good, he sees me. So that code's still working. I really like that, and I'm gonna keep involved. I'm gonna keep working on that to where we get more of them walking around. They're super creepy that way. I really like them just kind of moving through the environment, especially if you could kind of hide behind cars and that kind of thing to get away from them. Froggy, at this point, I'm not sure what you were referring to when you were asking what you just watched. But if you have any questions, just leave it on there. I can try to answer. Let's see how these guys respond in the tower. They got the guy with the bow. They did a good job only hitting the guy. Whoop. Looks like they lit up their guy a little bit more. Man, I don't think I've ever seen one of the bandits spike themselves. Let's see. So, it actually new events, the game that are only for a month or so. Um, so a couple of the towers have been less likely to spawn lately. I don't think that was done intentionally. I've tried to turn most of the towers on. And so I'm continuing. Well, one of the biggest problems was is even if it did spawn at night, they essentially just came down out of the tower and died right away. What I'm working on right now will make that to where they'll throw down Molotovs from the tops of the buildings if I can get the height code worked out. So, for example, if I say like they're up high in a tower, uh, and then turn on their ability to throw it more, so that glitch that you see him doing right there is actually in. So I don't think we have the answer there for them using the navigation of the zombies. At least I don't think that did much there. That one guy just kind of fell out. But essentially, if I can write the code to where if they're at a certain height, I can target things like the tops of buildings and that kind of thing to make it where they're more likely to use bows or use Molotovs higher up and not come down. Okay, so now that I've done plenty of testing here, I think I need to switch back over. So the edge detection didn't work how I was hoping, but the interesting part is that it does seem to have done something with the interior zombies to where they are starting to move around a little bit more. Lots more. Interesting that certain ones it's doing it, other ones it's not. Not activated, not activated, not even seeing me. Some are seeing me. Flashlight really doesn't do much. Certain ones that are already awake, it is working, but then you step on the surface. So I need to look for the surface detection type where it's looking at interiors and exteriors. I probably need to turn down the number of. Well, let's actually see what these guys do. Nice. They're burning out that group up there. Oof. Well, I guess there's always the possibility they'll light themselves up. So they're having the cooldown bug. So I have to look at the cooldown bug more. Personally, I'm a huge fan of that. If I could figure out a way to iron it out to where they were actually burning the interiors while they were sleeping and stuff like that, I think that would look really sick. Especially if I could figure out the edge detection and get these guys to where they start to come pouring out of the interiors while they're being attacked like that. I think that would just look really freaking good. The biters should probably also, I'm going to turn down their ability to die as far as overall health and try to target more if their heads get hit. I'm trying to look into that a little bit more so that their arms and legs don't do as much health damage. And so, along with that, is like fall damage. Fall damage shouldn't technically always kill them, rather, make that more based on if they fall on their heads, then they die. But if they don't fall on their heads, then they're less likely to die. All right, let me take a moment to try to find. I mean, there's just so many things. Like, even like, there's even these things like, normally if you have like weather systems, you would say, like, oh, okay, I have a weather system. It should detect like surfaces to determine I'm underneath a surface, so therefore the rain can't come through the floor. They just don't have those kind of systems yet. And so potentially that will come in the future, but like there's just I think that's kind of the problem is that there's just so many of these systems that were written that they're not supposed to do the things that I'm trying to have them do. So you just have to write all of it. And that's just very tedious. So the noise detection is definitely there. I've been really enjoying the noise detection systems. But the tower guys are going to burn themselves to death. So the tower guys, we'll probably need to have more. If I could target the commanders, maybe I can give commanders Molotovs and then give the other guys their crossbows, maybe. Um, so that way there's less of this like watch one more time. It's because they're in that corner. So it's a fun idea. I've definitely seen where the guys that are up on top of the buildings now come out and they'll actually throw stuff down. So you start to see more interactions where you'll have a tower where they're throwing stuff down at the zombies below, and that kind of thing is just awesome. But then you get moments like this where you're sitting there and like, what? So because it's not a matter of distance, they're not detecting like a distance issue there. They're good because it's not seeing that post because of the colliders. It's not seeing that post as something in their way, and then it's exploding. So it's just different systems not meant to do that. There's actually two types of landmines. Change the fully upgraded, the other pre-planted. Interesting. I'll take a look at the landmines in the world. I don't know about that one. They might have they might have made that part of the engine of the map builder. So who's to say? I'll try to keep an eye out though. Yeah, so that's what I'm looking at now. Frog is trying to determine, can I go in there and make this. That's what I'm trying to fix actively. Is saying, can we make it to where they are smarter about ledges, because you see the biters go to the ledges and they're solid, and I think the problem is not when they're, if you watch them, it's not when they walk to the ledge. When they walk to the ledge they can't get off the ledge, like it's trying to make the connection of climb down and that's it. It like bumps them, you see it. The problem is that they'll turn and then they'll walk, or they'll play their animations to where they slightly shift to the side, and then at a diagonal, they're then falling off. And so most of the time when I've seen them come crashing down, it's not because they've walked to the edge and then they've fallen off. It's because they've turned around and they're trying to get away from the edge, and then their animation drives them over the edge. And so it's a block. Like they've got logic that's telling them to stop and climb. So it's like a ledge detection system, which, now that I think about it, that could be. The problem is that I think most of these systems are sealed off, so I can't get to most of these systems that are already baked into the world. But when it comes to, and let me look at more nav calls. Let's see if there's more like nav mesh. Let's go in here and see what we got available here. We can ignore the editor stuff. Don't need to care about that. There's their perception profile, which basically gives them a sensor for nav mesh, which that reminds me, if we go over to AI modules, we have a collision module. Fall height, immediate kill. Here's where all of our collision depth, minimum speed. Yeah, no, Michael, I hope they do, because I've discovered a lot of, I mean, their systems are super basic. They're very straightforward. They're not very complex at all, and so I really hope that they do. I hope they do add that, or they should fix some of the missing systems. I hope they got the funding to do so. so that that's not a problem. So here's where we're setting the immediate kill logic. For the volatiles though, that's also in the config, so we can set that. Here's their push strength. Self speed to push others. Here's one of the things that I think needs to get turned down so that they can move through a crowd. Minimum self speed needs to be turned down so that they don't have to have. I mean, I've tried that with the goon and it kind of works. I'm going to actually set this lower for the larger one and actually for the volatiles as well. Because basically, this is the logic to get the biters and stuff out of their way so that they can get through crowds. Let's see, push strength, medium infected, average. And I guess let's turn this down kind of across the board and just start to see what we get. Because I do notice that a lot of times we get the issue where they're stuck on enemies. And so let's see if we can, even if it is a very minor amount of force, let's see if we can get them moving through crowds a little bit easier here. Affected, and then do they not have this concept? I've seen them get stuck many times. Ragdoll, hit, push reaction, so they don't have some of this. If you go like right here, let's also give the humans the ability to kind of move through the crowd. Yeah, a lot of people on the Discord, Mike, have been throwing out how broken the storyline is. There might be some things that can be patched up through mods, but like if it comes to missing content, most of the time they need to go fix those kind of things. Well, Froggy, so for that, I think it's because it's not meant to rain. Most of the time, those systems were kind of turned off until the end game kind of thing. So most of the weather, I believe, back in the vanilla is just sunny all the time, isn't it? Back over to our detection. Continue on. With nav mesh. There's our positional slots, which we changed some of that, which I think I probably could be a little bit more radical with these changes on here to see what these some of these things do with the nav mesh. I only really changed the idea of. I need to also find out what this enemy radius is. I guess let's just double it really quick and just see kind of what happens there. But so with the melee points, let's see, nav mesh origin tolerance, point tolerance, right, and offset, max trimmed tolerance, max connection up, down. Maybe that could also be another issue, is that they're not able to do raycast upward. So this is what's helping keep them from moving up or bringing the combat and everything upward, but rather keeping them on the ground. So let's take a look at adding like 3 to this and see if that starts to drive them up. Yeah, so Frog, there was like the initial reports were that you had standard weather throughout the entire experience until you got to the end. Once you got to the end, then all of a sudden you start to get weather changes. But I think that the weather is pretty much stock sunny, except in very specific storylines. So they changed it in different storylines, but it wasn't set to random kind of thing. Okay, gathering those little covered areas of the buildings. So I found a bug with a PK Renegade gathering in those little covered areas of the buildings. You're talking about like in the different environments, the areas that are like underneath the different walkways. They go up underneath there. I have actually seen where they, for whatever reason, kind of linger underneath those areas. Is that what you're referring to? So they can go down 6, except minimum relative height. Down 6, up 1. Change this to like 4. Keep relative height -8, up 6. Interesting. So we'll see what that does. Yeah, it's a spawn point for whatever reason. There's, you can find bandits and stuff like that, kind of keep staying out or staying in those little run through areas. They're called the run throughs, but that's where they spawn some of their patrols and stuff like that. And I think it's meant to simulate that they're traveling from somewhere else inside. On the other side, they're coming through out into the main street. Here they have this concept of the tolerance. So they have a tolerance of 1 for both the X and Z. Let's actually, we'll come back to that. So the tolerance might be a little bit more tricky, so we won't just blast through that. Let's see. So for the distance to edges, let me actually increase this and see if we can get it to do anything. Max height difference, let's go and increase that. So maybe we get them moving a little bit more. Random max deviation, let's actually increase this to get more random. Let's see, downward connection, upward connection. We want the upward connections to be high as well. Maybe that will fix our bug where they're not actually starting until you get lower. Horizontal connection length. Most of these are set by the individual types. Here I thought. So they have these, but this seems to be different. Prefer higher places, which is interesting. Check nav. Check only nav connected points. Say false. Fully check per update. Ray traces per update. Allow user connections. Climb low, climb medium, jump short, ladder. Disallowed areas. Let's go ahead and turn off these. I've added water. We'll find out if that actually works. Let's also block on runtime. Let's block water as well. it's little systems like this that confuse me because we have water is capitalized, fire is lowercase. Yeah, so thanks for asking, Mike. So basically, I took another swing at that. It's another update that I'm working on. I tried to create new inventory items and got very frustrated because they basically have locked all of that down to where you can't create new inventory items. That's a real bummer for trying to say like dynamic loots and, adding. Essentially, I want to go in there and see if we could make it to where you could create weapons or break down weapons and that kind of thing, find parts for weapons, all sorts of cool stuff that I would like to be able to do, that I immediately hit a wall. And so I'm not sure why. It's interesting. The vantage point has idle points have a negative, but vantage points do not. Huh. Gonna try something, and let's just see. Let's do the same as the idle points and see what we get. But essentially, I was trying to expand that system, and while I can take valuables and stuff like that that are already in the inventory and move them over to where they're crafting items, I wanted to see how much further I could push the system, and immediately ran into a wall. So once I get the AI behaving how I want them to, I'm going to switch back over, and more than likely, any systems like that, technically all of these things don't have to be done under I Am Legion. Certain crafting systems and that kind of thing for RPG elements could be made under a different mod. So not to conflict kind of everything, but I'm going to continue to look at it and see how much is overhaul content and how much of it's like new system content that's very specific to a type of mod people would want in their game. And so I'm continuing to kind of try to crawl through it to see what all I can come up with. Yeah, so there's plenty of items in there. I mean, it's over 700 and some items already in the inventory. The challenge, I think, is that going and redoing those weapons, I know that these future updates are going to change the weapon systems. I know guns are coming, lots of other things. So I'm kind of also waiting to see how they update their system as well, because that's definitely one that I know from experience that they radically change over time, and so I don't want to be supporting, you know, massive amounts of changes to the inventory and crafting systems just yet. I'm just interested in how I can make it a little bit better, but I'm going to keep looking at that for sure. So the other one we set to what? Minimum distance. I set that to 8. Let's go in here and set that to like 5, see what happens. Move that up to 5. Move this up to 6 because they're Overwatch essentially. Downward connection height. It's interesting that the vantage point code, which based on my knowledge of the vantage point stuff, these are the guys that are supposed to get like, these are like bowmen and stuff that are supposed to be able to see down. But I feel like it's reversed here where the people that are idle can see down, but then the people in vantage points can't really do much downward or upward, which is a bizarre. I mean, upward it's got a ton, but max downward connection. Let's just add some of these and see what we end up getting as far as the movement. I mean, maybe we go in here and change these things and it does nothing. I bet that was it. So in an earlier update, I removed this interior code. So this disallows special areas interior, which probably broke that seal on some of those bandit or biters coming out. We'll also add the runtime water and see if that works. All right, so quite a few changes there. And then let's keep going down through here real quick. No, so they're absolutely figuring out how they can bring guns and stuff like that into the game. No part of me thinks that they won't have that in here within the next like probably a year or so. The challenge will be is what how many different systems have they hidden um, to bring those back online. So I think we're gonna just have to find out. So I think you asked about the connection stuff. Let me go back up here. Oh, Froggy, you asked about it. Assuming you're still on here, Frog. Um, so a connection is basically you have this concept of a nav mesh that bakes out a surface. It's what the agent system or the moving NPC uses to connect or know how to walk. Is that baked nav mesh? The connections is how it understands gaps. So if you jump from one building to the other, there has to be a connection between two surfaces to determine if they can move between those two surfaces. And so their connection strength is kind of what we're targeting for like volatiles and that kind of thing to be able to jump from building to building. I mean, ideally, it would be nice to have bandits chase you over rooftops as well. The challenge is that they've turned off most of the code for the roof. I've been trying to turn it all back on, but they've turned off a lot of that code. If I can get them spawning back on the rooftops, then I'll have them hopefully do more chases and stuff over the rooftops. But here's an auto connection. This actually is for the editor. Pretty sure most of the editor code doesn't work. I mean, I haven't confirmed that. I don't have the editor, so I wouldn't know. But I think for bare bones, I'm probably going to pull the editor out because it keeps giving me hope. So we don't want the editor code popping up necessarily because then I'm like, oh, hell yeah, there it is. And then it's just editor level stuff. So let's go in here and say, so they still have a couple of them out in the main area here, but so if we go down here and say, most of these are the, what are these, prefabs? Selections. Selection. I don't think I've ever gone into selections. Oh, there are a bunch of prefabs. Huh. We'll strip out selections as well. Most prefab stuff we can't really benefit from. Let's clear that. Search again. This will help us narrow down to the actual code rather than all the other additional systems. Behavior places. So these are the animations. Crawl through hole. Behavior places. There's a reference to the editor now. Oh. I've been deleting this stuff out of here. Aw. Did it to the wrong location. Okay. Try that again. Delete that. Delete selections. Okay. That would explain why the searches were the same length. Okay. Places. Here we have prototypes, which I should probably remove prototypes as well, considering these are all just additional prefabs to junk up things. Let's clear that. Search again. Added road to the disallowed special areas that prevent entity from going to ground level or the road. So I think that's actually like a type of surface down on there. They actually do have the road concept. It could keep them off the ground. You know, the floor is lava kind of approach, but I'm not sure. I would have to test that out. Um, but you know, right now, with the random movement, you'll see the biters actually go get on the roadways or the in between areas, and they'll actually follow those a good ways. So I wonder if that is due to the fact that they have less issues moving across roads than any other area. So I think with the harpoon gun, I think most of that's all just sitting there. I think that one would be easy for modders to turn back on. Whether or not it would break the game, I don't know. Oh, okay. Well, Frog, let me know how that's going. I mean, if you figure out something interesting, let me know. Um, that's what I've been trying to do myself, so we'll see how it goes. Here's the AI navigation, behavior places, a temp folder. It's probably also killed the temp, which is full of prefabs that are probably not used. Clean that up. You talking about for the gun, the harpoon gun? Yeah, not only is it all there, like the inventory icons, all that stuff's there. I'm pretty sure you could just easily add that to the trader to get those spawning into the world. So here we go. Now we're down to the actual logic. So we have mesh logic where they're baking in all of the connection flags and all that good stuff. Then we have the story outline. Then we have a generator blacklist. Interesting. Those probably don't work. Challenges. There we go. Motion sensors. Perfect. Okay, so then we go into scripts, RAMs, sensors, motion, which I think I probably already have a modified version of that in here. Nope, pulled that one out. Motion. So now we have fall threshold, minimum fall height. So there's your trip. So if we go in here and set minimum fall height, if we set that down to 1, I think the problem here is this default crap. Let's go over to our, I think I should be able to just shift these over, but if these do relate back to the presets, then they might not let me. I think basically from what I was looking at earlier though, if you give it the new name, it will reroute it. So let me go over here to logic, human AI, biters, and then say, do they have motion? So it's their modules that are setting, but technically, if it is searching this file, and we do something like biter, which I'm pretty sure is what I ended up doing for the eruptor defaults, actor sensors, what are they called in here? That's the problem, is that some of these are like biter night. What's their FOV? FOV is biter night. So it's also using biter night. So I might need to use, let's start with spider default and see if it. I mean, I seriously doubt it. So this is going to end up. This is going to end up being for everyone, but they have this can fall. They have and this is actually where I found a bug. So I found this bug before. I fixed it. It seemed to cause issues. Um, Let me try to fix it again and see if this corrects it. But as you can see here, you have this XZ and then you have Y. And then down here you have XZ and then you have XZ. So obviously that's applying the same thing to the same one twice. Technically this should be Y if we wanted to fix the Y. For the fall threshold, let's go in here for shits and giggles. If I can do that with a float here, but we'll see. Hang on one second. Let's see. Fall threshold, XZ, walk threshold. So if we turn up their thresholds maybe, and then this goes back to the other threshold testing. So they had the other threshold testing, or the other thresholds at the positional slots. No, they have tolerance, which is not the same, obviously. Sorry, just catching up on your guys' conversation over here. Yeah, they also have a ton of vehicle scripts. Basically, they have an entire working buggy worth of code in there. The problem is that they've stripped out all of the spawnable references, so there's nothing to spawn. But I'm guessing that's where they left like the bike. You know, people have been able to use the bike. I mean, I'm assuming most of that was for testing. So those kind of systems work if you could figure out how to get those spawnable objects back in there. Maybe you could get it working, but I'm not sure. Where does use base defaults? Are you talking about in the what I was just working with the navigation? This base defaults here. I'm assuming that you're going to say yes to this, so I'm going to just keep going forward. This calls the method up above. So if you scroll up, there's this base method here, which is defining these two properties, and then it's injecting it so that you don't have to go write that for every single one of them. It's basically just injecting that code down here below. So it's taking those two values and it's injecting those for every single one of the guys down below. So with the fall thresholds, I'm gonna go in here and let's be a little bit more radical here and then say like that the fall threshold's lower, the walk threshold is higher. What walk threshold Y would look like, but let's leave that. And then for this, let's just set this all low. Fall height. And then for these guys, for default, I mean, let's just do like that. If this really is default for every NPC in the game, then I probably can't turn on falling for like tripping. just because you're going to end up with all of your human AI tripping over everything as well. All right, let me run this really quick and let's see what we get. I need to pause for lunch. We've been going for 3 hours now. Good stuff, 3 hours and 30 minutes. And so let me wrap up here, go take a break, get some food, stop looking at code for a little bit. And let's see what we get with this nav mesh system. I'm going to start again later this evening. So I need to go and run some Sunday chores and that kind of thing. But I am going to try to have a update out by the end of the evening so that you guys can start testing update 14. I've got a lot of systems here that I'm working on. So the more feedback I get, the better. And so I'll be trying to get that release out this evening, just so you guys can let me know what you think. But before wanting to do that, I wanted to make sure that these systems weren't too broken. If everything's messed up, obviously, that's not going to be a good play experience for everybody. Still have the switch bug. I haven't attempted to fix that yet, so that would make sense. But also, this could be the height thing. So, like, they're not throwing anything, they're just kind of standing around. Yeah, see, look at that. See how they just don't. They finally switched their weapon, but this guy is doing, like, nothing. If I go down here, watch. If I go down here, I feel like they'll. Maybe I'm wrong. But I feel like at a certain height, they all of a sudden their logic turns on, kind of thing. Thanks, Froggy. Appreciate that, man. It's good talking with you and catching up through this. These are all definitely ongoing developments, so we'll see. We'll see when they actually get released. Hopefully this evening, but if they need more time, they need more time. I definitely don't want to cause anybody to be frustrated by the game. I mean, obviously, this kind of thing just equals more people being wiped out faster rather than, challenging NPCs. So, something I'm looking at. So that's the retreat system. So the retreat system is still glitched where he was trying to get away, but he can't find an object to climb on within this distance. So he's trying to find, I guess he can't see these for whatever reason. So maybe they only marked certain objects as climbable. I don't know. I've never actually had. A couple of bugs to still fix here. All gas zombies. That mid-air grab, though. So I need to make these guys climb to determine if this is working. So I need these guys to go upwards. Oof, he's gonna kill me. Playing long enough to know that it's just like it's a certain distance every time with the bowman. You just literally just move slightly, move, slightly, move slightly, move slightly. So I still haven't been able to figure out why those things explode, but what I did was I turned down their ability to blow everybody into the air. So they still explode. It still causes everybody in the area, including the player, to get blown backwards. But it doesn't blast your NPCs way up into the air, which, is half the battle. See, he's climbed up. Let's see if we can get him moving. So he's doing a good job right now, just kind of attacking. He went to the edge there. Get out up in there. Well, so I wonder if I disable falling, what will happen with these guys? Also, I guess an interesting question here is why all of a sudden are the volatiles not climbing? I guess this would be easier to see if we were playing Ultimate. But these guys appear to have issues with pathfinding. They're just sitting around screaming. There we go. Ooh, is that a volatile? So they woke up, they're screaming, they're moving. They're like him. He's not seeing me. Interesting. So with some of this testing, it's broken their abilities to look up. Interesting. So this is probably a max connection issue. Did he die? He did die. Huh. So these guys got killed and then the virals died. I didn't realize the virals were still dying out like that. Yeah, here they all are. Interesting. So they absolutely need some context where they're going back in buildings or something so that they're resetting the dark zone timers. So here's the movement logic, or at least it was until the noise took over. But I did see random movement there for a little bit. You can see that popped them out of it. Let me see if I can go find some better examples of these guys climbing really quick before giving up on all those changes. So here we have a bandit, two bandits, archers. And I think we got some across the tracks over there. Yeah. He's going to get wiped. So I still got to work on the fallback code to where these guys actually get out of the way. I was working on their tactics, but then I switched over to trying to solve for this nav mesh issue. We got to figure out why the volatiles, or not the volatiles, but the virals are no longer looking upward. That's going to be a problem. Considering the volatiles also use their upward code. I like this shift. So if you look over here, we've got about, like 15 zombies moving across the map towards the guys. So that audio detection and the noise detection systems are just working really well for trying to get these zombies slowly moving. So I think with that casual survivor, that concept of the map closing in on you, I think that is still working well. They spot you, they start to head towards you. So they are hoarding up and then they're charging, which is great. Get them moving across the map. It's like the Molotovs, he's still having issues with knowing when to throw. Should have looked away. We move up top, then they kind of spread out. They're all looking at me, but they all kind of circle up, which is fun. Might make it a little bit more fun for, but this, no, they see me. They're just doing this circle up thing, which I like. It'll make it more likely that these guys will. I haven't tried this on Ultimate Survivor yet, but we even had a random guy go shuffling off. So he decided to go walking off kind of thing. If we, the PK is like, what the hell's there? They're actually looking that way. PK decided to get involved. And see, this is the interactions that I want them to start doing when discovering large groups of zombies, to where they are starting to use their Molotovs to clear large groups instead of using their melee weapons. Because, like, with their melee weapons, there he goes. He's, overwhelmed almost immediately. So that guy seems like he's stuck in an idle loop. It's push. And that's interesting. Every time I've seen these guys glitching and acting weird, it's the distance to push. They get like stuck with this idea that they need to push the one of the guys. Like they'll want to push the player or they'll want to push somebody. And so they'll sit there and repeat that action over and over again until they get close enough to push, and then they kind of get back. So I'm curious if something with the push code is causing, and the distance calculations is causing them to not be able to continue forward. So I think this is pretty great. You get a whole group sitting here screaming. We should bring more in, so you can see that's starting to bring more of them to this location. Even the crawlers over there are on high alert now. Grab a screenshot really quick. It's pretty fun. They're bringing in zombies from all around, kind of thing. If we step onto the ground, they just immediately start to swarm, which is interesting. I think I need to figure out what is causing right now, and I think this might be a sensor issue, maybe with the nav mesh that's causing this. But essentially, if they're breaking as soon as I do that, they're losing the path. then their connection targets are getting messed up. So I need to figure out what's causing that connection path to be messed up. I Okay. I'm gonna take a break here and step away from this for a minute. But essentially, we've got a couple of things that I'm gonna keep looking at with this navigation and with the motion. I think it'd be pretty quick to just test can fall if I set that to false. Um, Another thing that I'll need to do is start looking at. I didn't get all the way down through here, so let me look really quick. Say nav mesh sensors. This is just the number of sensors they're using to move through the environment. So you have like the volatiles are at 8 versus humans are what? Human high alert is 12, runners 12. And for their, that's it. So we don't have a ton of code calling nav mesh. Got some of these behavior places, that kind of thing, but some of this code isn't obviously available unless the editor code could work, which I might have to turn to the editor code. But if we go to like fall, then fall from edge enable under AI timing. Thing. Interesting. Maybe they're baking it into events called during the animations. Interesting. Okay, so under here, I mean, the -1 could be like a timing thing. So how many times are they calling? So they're calling upset climb. So they're allowing them to fall from edges during specific animations, which could be like where, for example, you're able to kick them and they actually like release kind of thing. Upset. I think the problem here is that the events are numbered. Are the events always the same? So 53, 53. Nope. 46. It's also like a timing thing. So that could be tricky. Fall on hit, disable, sprint, fall from ledge, jump on. So I wonder, I don't know how much control I have on these types of systems, but if the code is already available, I wasn't done, of course, looking through here to determine if there's anything else, but getting pulled back in. I need to run for that door, get away from here. Let's see. So we've got lots of like so maybe in the human AI they have fall from ledge was left in, and that's why the zombies don't, is that their animations aren't calling these events. Infected fall from ledge. Fall. Then they're turning it on, turning it off. So that's the infected though, but I'm not sure that that includes the biters. Okay. So there's lots of concepts of falling built into their event system, baked into the animations. So I might have to look at that. There's lots of audio, fall loop, light fall, dust falling. Lots of fallback systems here. Here's a Dying Light 1 script. Fall limit. Fall limit. Interesting. So maybe one of the issues is that they had the concept of falling built into here, and then they lined some of it out. Gasket visualization, falling trap, fallback. Motion sensor, can fall, fair fall, fall jump. Okay, I just wanted to crawl through there really quick. I am going to take a break here and go get some food, step away from the screen. It's been really good talking to a lot of you guys. Thanks for viewing. Still ongoing, lots of development. Keeping an eye on that update. When the update does drop, then I will start to look at it more seriously as far as taking um, closing up shop and trying to iron out that 100% 1.0. Hey, check this out. Unreal. Let's see. They reference a course in real shading in Unreal Engine 4. I wonder if they're using his methodologies right here. I just happened to catch that before I ended up here. So I'll be continuing to look at this evening and trying to find solutions for these different things. As I'm continuing to crawl through and introduce new systems, obviously new bugs are coming into play. And so it's one of those things where I have to be careful about the amount of systems I'm introducing, especially here towards heading into 1.0. So some of these things may have to wait. Some of these things might require more time. And so I'm continuing to look at those to see what gains we can get off having a more immersive experience inside the game, but then also trying to make sure that the mod isn't breaking too many things, because obviously people are going to be more frustrated if the game's broken. So continuing to crawl through. All right, thanks guys, and look forward to talking to you guys here in the future, and hope you guys have a good day.